So this morning I've got Kav Sehmi with me, who I've known for a few years working at Lloyds Banking Group together. This is the second interview where I'm actually interviewing somebody other than myself around how we learn and how we grow. So Kav, if you could start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, my name's Kav. I've been working within Lloyds for group transformation for the last couple of years now. Before that, I was kind of consultancy world, and really kind of just looking at how we can start producing things that people actually want, and just start listening to our customers a little bit more, and yeah, just getting to the heart of the customer problems and the customer value rather than thinking about what our stakeholders like. So I'm on a journey right now with that, and kind of a spiritual one at the same time. So kind of trying to mesh the two together somehow.
I think it's fair to say we've had some interesting conversations along the way, which
Yeah.
probably are much to do with Lloyd's at all, with
No.
motivation and purpose and individual
Yeah.
purpose and so on.
Yeah. Just trying to find out sort of what the value of like me and us in an organization that's actually quite large and clunky, and actually we're one of thousands, but how do we bring what really matters to us into something that's actually quite superficial on the face of it, I think was a
Hmm.
couple of conversations we've had before. And I know that it's something that we're constantly mulling over. What's our purpose, what's our why, where are we going, and what's the direction, but also sort of what's next, like what's the bigger step after this
Hmm.
organization in the grand scheme of how we're growing and how we're almost just being.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So we'll start off with the interviews questions. So there's normally 3 or 4 questions, more or less a similar format, but we'll see how it
Mhm.
goes. And
Yeah.
this is for you, so you can take this where you want and even change the questions if you want. It's
Okay.
up to you. But it's all about learning how your sort of personal growth and your learning journey. So what matters to you and gives you motivation?
um a lot. So what matters to me is actually doing the right thing for somebody or for the cause. I mean, I'm not, maybe it's controversial to say, but not really driven by sort of financial gain. Yes, we need money. The money has to like kind of money, makes the world go round and all of that jazz. But actually doing something that's right for the cause. I'm quite a principled human. Principles kind of drive every decision that I make. What's the impact on a human level for me? Always. So it's, if I do X, what will happen to that person? Whether it be their feelings, whether it be sort of their lives, their sort of family and support network. So for me, I'm driven by that element, but also what motivates me is, I guess, my family, my support network. I believe that everyone isn't just a person on their own, and I don't think that people come with just their own experiences. They get that from the people that are in sort of their circle and their circle. And I'm just fortunate that culturally, my family, I've got quite a big family. I've got quite a lot of diverse thinking around my sort of inner sort of network. And I think that really helps me and motivates me to not just see it in sort of Cav's eyes.
Mm.
Um, so that definitely motivates me, and just drives me and keeps me going. I think I've been fortunate that every kind of opportunity and sort of life milestone that I've had has always kind of been driven by making decisions and communicating and talking about a lot of things. I'm a talker. We're a family that kind of sits and listens, and always plays devil advocate if we feel like we're kind of going into like a narrow tunnel vision view on life. So yeah, those are things that motivate me.
Cool. Thank you. So, so what motivates you, as I've understood it, as I've heard you, is certainly not money, certainly not financial. It's about your family, your wider circle,
Yeah.
what their needs are. And you were saying something quite interesting about you are more like the sum of your network. You are not an individual alone. You are
Yeah.
a collective aggregate of everyone you've spoken to and your circle and your circle.
yeah, and it's not just family, it could be, colleagues, it could be friends. I like to talk to people to understand how they've got to where they've got to.
Mm,
Um, because I don't feel like just because we happen to work in the same organization or even in the same team, or we come from what looks like on paper the same sort of trajectory and career progression or whatever, I do think everyone's got their own route in, and everyone's got their own way of thinking about things. And to me, I just love hearing about how other people's brains are different to mine. So yeah.
mm, interesting. So how we may have touched on this to some
Mm,
extent, but how deep? I mean, 'cause you did talk about other people acting as a devil's advocates, your family in particular, that
mm,
being the norm that
mm.
will be challenged. Did you want to add to that in terms of how you learn?
Yeah, so I learned through I like to kind of start going about my own little research. If there's something that really does resonate with me, I'll go and then do my own little individual go and learn in the traditional sense of, let's read up on this or let's watch this. But for me, I get my real sort of a sense of flow, state of flow, when I'm in a group of people and we're sat and we're
Mm,
talking about something, and for example, Alex is telling me something new about something, and I'm really intrigued, and I feed off people's vibes and energy and what they can bring to the conversation. So for me, it's never about I'm going to read one article and oh my god, because I've read that's like gospel. I need to talk to different people. I need different views on it, and I kind of then figure out I've got a balanced argument in my mind of X versus Y. So, and it's always been, don't just take something on face value. Let's kind of challenge it. Let's scratch beneath the surface. And um, for me, I have to debate something. I have to talk about something. I have to, even if it's, just general conversation, it could be anything, it could be trivial, it could be learning about something so tiny. But it has to be with people and challenge. I think I like to not feel like I'm learning something on my own, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, I want to feel like I'm part of a bigger journey that we're all kind of just trying to find out. And then I just find it fascinating when I've learned about something and Alex will come into the office together and then we're just like talking about what we've learned and the different things that we've learned from books or people that or people that I know, and stories and I guess anecdotal little case studies that we have. So I kind of learn through the traditional mediums, but mainly through people and the team. I like to be in a team of people that can kind of just feel free to say how they feel without feeling like they're judged about what they're learning or how they're
Mm.
learning it. So yeah,
That's an
sorry,
interesting angle.
went
Uh,
off on a tangent there.
no, not at all. It's really interesting because you were talking about, obviously, it sounds like you just sort of seed some ideas by doing a bit of research just to get some
Yeah.
basic knowledge or perspectives, but then you're learning through other people and taking on board different perspectives.
Mm.
And in fact, you were saying you need that. I need that collective experience. You want to be traveling together,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Um, I'm wondering how you also talked about being open-minded. So you need to go with people who are not who are open-minded, who are not going to close things down. Um, how do you go about doing that?
It's weird because, to be honest, it's not. I actually find people that are quite rigid in their thinking interesting anyway, as well. Because for me, then I start questioning to be like, so I then kind of put my little psychology hat on, and I'm just so intrigued to figure out. And I don't think anyone ever gets there, but I'd like to kind of analyze that person's view because that's obviously come from somewhere. And kind of coming back to the point
Mm,
around everyone's almost a sum of their experiences. I just find that interesting when that individual has been so sort of skewed to one side that for me is a data point in itself.
yeah,
Um, so it doesn't. I don't necessarily need to surround myself with open-minded people because not everyone is. Because and actually, when you get those little nuggets of weird, super skewed opinions, they just fascinate me as well, because it makes me wonder how they've got to that point.
Mm,
And when was it that they turned, or have they always been that way? But they haven't always, because we've all been at a point in our lives where we've absorbed absolutely everything as children. So when did it then just veer off? So for me, it's a case of just balancing even the really rigid views as well.
mm,
Um, yeah, and I kind of take it, before I used to take it quite personally. I think as you're younger, you're like, well, why is that person kind of not seeing anyone else's point of view? Or even if I'm giving a counterpoint in something that you've learned or you're talking about. But now I just find it really fascinating to see how they've got there. So I think that's been a journey for me as well.
cool. I should mention you've got a degree in psychology, which I think people probably can
Yeah,
tell.
they should probably know that. Yeah.
And I'll hold my hand up then. I think I was projecting a bit because I've got open-mindedness is important to me. I think you know. So
Yeah.
I was latching onto that. So it was really interesting actually how you came back and you find different perspectives interesting, and a closed mind isn't a bad thing. It's, or a very concrete view is interesting
Mm,
itself as to how people have got to that point for you.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look at society now, right? We are so divided in terms of, the majority of people, I do feel, maybe this is a big statement to make, but are quite closed-minded even now still. And I think that's what's interesting about, um, if we just did a bit more research into those kind of individuals and see how they get to where they've got to, maybe we could just start actually implementing some change and figure out, because ultimately those very rigid views come from a place of, I think, fear
Mm,
or insecurity about something that's not necessarily even related to what they're fighting for, essentially.
mm.
Um, so I think it's just interesting to see those people as, it's not their fault almost.
Yeah, yeah,
It's what they've collected along the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't judge those who are judging.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Otherwise we just become the same.
Mm, yeah. Well, that's really interesting. But I want to go on to the next question. So, how do you make sure your blind spots or unconscious biases don't trip you up?
Yeah. That's an interesting one, because like I said, I think every kind of conversation I've had at like growing up and even like career wise, everyone has them. Everyone has unconscious biases, and I think that's where actually having parents and siblings that have been like, "Oh, Cav, no, have you ever thought of it like this? And are you sure that's not just your view?" I think I always like to check myself
Mm,
almost. So I will. It's easier in a personal setting, I think, to kind of just have that conversation with like a partner and be like, is that me? Is that just me doing that? Um, in a work setting as well, like I think we're fortunate that we work in a team, that we are kind of so open with each other, and that we do have an element of trust that we can just be like, okay, I'm feeling like this, is that right? And I think maybe not the whole team, but it cuts certain individuals I can definitely do that with. So if I do feel like I'm creeping into a really weird, like, Cav, you're letting your own insecurities and your own biases kind of creep in that conversation, I will stop and send a little message to a colleague and be like, is that me?
mm,
I just, it's funny though, because unconscious bias is one of those things where you almost, unless you start genuinely self-reflecting in every area of your life, I just don't know how people know that they've got them.
mm,
And I know this is a topic for you and I that's really close to our chests. I just do think that organizations that we work in and everything around your career progression and how you learn, how you move forward, I just feel like we need to be really flying that flag of, you need to just self-reflect on every point. And it's not about like calling out your weaknesses or the fact that you're like wrong in certain areas. It's not that at all. It's almost just learning about yourself before you then think that you can start managing people or helping others, because it's the whole, if the plane's crashing, help yourself first before you help others. And I think actually that's what you should be doing at every stage of your life. It's not about how do I get to that next promotion, or how do I do that for that because it will look good here and here and here. It's almost like you have to kind of sit with yourself for a while. And I'm turning it's sorry, this is not meaning to sound fluffy, but self-reflection is so key in everything, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's how we work as a team. If we don't know what makes us tick and how we act, and can't almost stand back and say, okay, if I was observing that behavior, how would that have been perceived, or what did I just do? Kav, like, what was your behavior in that situation? I just don't think you're ever going to know what your biases really are.
Mm.
So I think for me, I've tried really hard to keep that notion of self-reflection just part of my daily life, even at home, because I think, you can have an argument with somebody and then you can say, okay, fine, actually, if I could do that differently, Kav, this is this and this about yourself that you're not doing, that you could have done differently. And I think we can do that a lot more. I don't think we carve out the time to do that at work. We talk a good game about personal development and self-reflect, but no one actually puts the time in to do that. And actually the motivation around those conversations are very bonus related, or the next promotion or this or that, or so it's never really because you genuinely need to do it for yourself. So yeah, I'm a massive advocate of that, and I think we should spend more time doing it. And that's the way I look at my unconscious biases, try anyway, more through the self-reflection route.
So it sounds like it's very much sort of inbuilt in the way you operate anyway, by using other people to reflect, but also stepping outside yourself to reflect.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between self-reflection and validation. I think they're different things, and I think actually that's kind of where people feel that they're getting that through sort of feedback at work, but they kind of use that as like a validation mechanism of like, have I done that right, or am I good enough? But actually slightly different, because when you're self-reflecting, you're not kind of questioning whether you're worth, you're not questioning whether you're good enough, you're actually just really sitting back and looking at how you've acted and what your triggers are, how you act with other people, what's your behavior in certain situations, and and almost kind of get into the root of what makes you act like that if you want to change the way you behave. And I think that's, for me, fundamentally where we go wrong at work, is that we're looking for validation rather than growth. Yeah.
Could you have an example for yourself, maybe where you've not necessarily validated, but where you have actually, you've done that, gone through that, checking your unconscious biases and learned something?
Yeah, I have actually. So we got there was a team member that came into our team. I'm not going to name names because you may be interviewing and people may see this that we know. So yeah, a team member that came in last year, and I don't know, is this an unconscious bias? I don't know. We can reflect together. So kind of new, very kind of outgoing. Like, how do I explain this politically? In a way that's not gonna. A really, really outgoing, wonderful, actually, lady that joined the team, and she'd been branded as like, no one will get on with her. She's super bossy, like she does what she needs to do to get the job done, but people don't really connect. And so then I was kind of going in with okay, this is where it's going to go. I had a couple of conversations and introductory conversations, very much was like, okay, there's like a power thing here going on. And I hadn't even met her, and I had got this whole, through just seeing her in a corridor or seeing how she's operated, and then that kind of started leading me to believe that I need to act in a certain way to have a conversation with this person or to get to work with this person. And actually that's where I feel like unconscious biases come from, like how other people kind of seep their vibes into you, because I ended up having an awesome relationship with this person, and everyone actually did, because everyone kind of then stopped listening or kind of putting their assumptions in, and realized that this person was coming from just an alternative place of thinking and perspective, and actually was like, hold up a second, let's just challenge the status quo here. And actually the way that she operated was pretty awesome. But at that point, I kind of had conversations with myself. I was just like, what is actually happening here, Kav? Like, you don't even know this lady. And I'd come home. And for me, it's coming home and like taking myself away from the office,
Mm.
and actually kind of talking to myself and talking to her partner and be like, this has happened today. And actually, I think, and I don't even need a response from that other person. I'm just almost spewing words, because it's like, I think this is what's happening. I think I've made XYZ assumptions based on a persona that's been described, and I've not had a chance to actually get to know that person. And by doing that, I don't know if that is unconscious bias, maybe it is actually. I start our relationship on a different foot and actually realize I didn't have to do that, and I could be genuine, and that person was also genuine with me, and we were she wasn't what people described, and probably I wasn't what she thought I was going to be either. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of picking up on your theme of working with people and learning together and being very
Mm,
receptive to that energy. Maybe that has a downside, because some of that energy is negative and
yeah,
harmful. So maybe you need to, well, you were and you are being conscious of that and checking in
yeah,
outside of the workplace
yeah.
to verify that.
Mm,
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. Um, so the next question I was going to ask was, what have you learned recently, that it doesn't have as recent as you want to make it, that's
mm,
changed your beliefs? That's what the sort of fundamental here is recognizing our beliefs are maybe
yeah,
correct, more than likely.
yeah. So you know this, Alex, but I've kind of been going through a bit of a, how am I? I've asked myself what my purpose is for quite a while now, what my why is, what is the whole entire universe about? And I've made a vow to myself that 2020 was going to be around actually making time to learn about what you want to learn about. So that doesn't have to be sort of a work context at all. So I've been just recently qualified as a Reiki therapist. And actually, for me, that was something that was a little bit too far out, even like while discovering myself last year. It's like, there's spiritual, but is there anything in this energy? Like, is it just like all like woo woo, and is it just too much? So I kind of went in there with a half skeptical mind, actually, when I was going for my training, um, because although some people believe that psychology is a little bit fluffy anyway, it's so based in neuroscience, and for me, I need kind of like science to back something up sometimes. So I was just kind of going with it and seeing what was happening. But I do believe actually pushing myself into a comfort zone of just going to South London and being in a group of quite extraordinary women that just have come from different paths of lives completely, and coming in and learning about different energy and how people can heal through different ways, actually kind of opened my mind to a completely different belief system. I think I've always been spiritual in that sense. I think I've kind of been brought up in an environment where, you know, spiritualism's been very connected in my daily life, and sort of, you know, always been grateful, um, and all of those sort of fundamental things. But this kind of took it to a different level, and I do believe that, you know, opening my mind to something that can seem so out there for you as a person, and then almost finding what you resonate with, which was the science bit for me. So then I kind of started learning about how actually there's a whole load of science around how energy actually, what energy is, how it reacts with each other, and sort of experiments that people have done with it in the kind of context of Reiki has really just changed the way I think about how we interact not just as humans, but how we interact with Mother Nature outside, and almost just putting loads of things into perspective. So I think actually, since I've done it, it was only a couple of months ago, I've looked at work in a completely different way. Things that would just bug the shit out of me don't anymore, because it just feels like everything's in balance now. I know what to genuinely like focus stress on, and getting a snotty email or feeling like this particular thing is frustrating actually doesn't so much anymore.
Mm.
And I think it comes back to, I guess I'm learning about myself in this interview, but it feels like I do learn from other people, and I do learn from exploring, but in my own time. There's just a running joke in my family that I was little girl, and my dad, I've got an older sister. My dad was like, "Come on, Kav, like, do you want to learn your ABC? Because Kay's doing it." And I was like, "No, I don't need to do it right now. Like, I'm okay." And I think it's just been a joke, because I think everyone kind of knows that Kav will do it when like it's her time to do something, and then she'll kind of learn and explore in her own way with whoever she needs to do that with. So I do think that if someone had told me you need to go on this course and learn about this and figure out if it does anything for you, I don't think would have had the same impact on changing the way I think or believe about certain things.
Mm.
So yeah, Reiki's been an awesome one for me, and I do think we could bring it into the workplace. It's something that we could. It doesn't take long. It doesn't actually mean that I'm physically touching anybody, and it just brings a different energy, just genuine energy into a room or a meeting or a workplace, and it does work.
So it sounds like there's some elements of finding your path at your pace
Yeah.
to get there. I'm curious about the belief though, because when you talk about, on one hand, you're maybe still a little uncomfortable talking about it, but you're also very energized by it, and that's perhaps driving you forward.
Yeah.
I'm curious whether there's really a belief, or whether it's almost like, have you allowed yourself to admit to having a belief, or allowed you to do this further? Is this about you, or is it about other people, for example, when you're exploring this?
No, I do think it's a belief. I mean, I know what you mean. I think it's quite difficult right now to decipher. So I've if someone took, like, I mean, I'm so open with you at work, and I'm like, yeah, Alex, I've just done this. It's really cool. Do you want to be my guinea pig? Because I genuinely believe that it works. I do think that actually it's something that we can benefit from collectively. So it's not just me. It's not just you that would benefit. Also, I benefit from it, and other people do as well. Because then people realize that, look, oh my God, Alex is changed. I think, is it about others? I don't think it's about others. It's just a very interesting question. I think
Again, I might be projecting, perhaps, but I was
um,
about what is it
no,
that.
it's an interesting challenge, and I think it is an inner belief that changed in me. I think there's always been a part of me that's ready to explore things, but then from a distance, because like I said before, like I am open-minded, so I will read things and I will kind of contemplate and assess whether it kind of does anything for my belief system, or if it doesn't, that's cool as well. But with Reiki, it was really interesting because, like I said, if someone had told me about it, I would have been like, oh my God, that sounds cool. But I wouldn't actually have. The way that I think about this now is I practice this every day. And that's something that if someone told me before, Cav, come on, you need to meditate. You need to meditate. It's great for your brain. Oh, and this and this. And actually, when people say that, it's because it works. It's their genuine belief system. And I don't feel like you can just kind of throw something on somebody. I think they almost need to kind of get to that conclusion themselves.
Mm.
I do think I mean, I've been like literally talking about this to everybody in my family. So I'm like, Mum, like, this is what I've been doing. It's really cool. And like to my husband, who's the biggest cynic in the world of everything. I was like, this is what it actually is, and these are the experiments that have been behind it. And I sometimes, though, I do believe that actually, even if it changes your belief system, you don't really need other people to come in and validate that either. And also, I don't think it's about others, because I know who I can talk to about it in a way that doesn't feel like someone that's going to almost not judge my belief system, but it's like, you know, your audience sometimes. So, you know, we could have a really open, deep conversation about it. And actually, if someone who is sort of closed off to it, I could have quite an interesting conversation with them too. But at the same time, I do kind of have this view of everyone's belief system is their own, and as much as they want to share it, they can, and
Mm.
they obviously should. But it's almost like I don't need. It comes back to that validation thing. I don't think I need other people to validate that this has genuinely changed how I think about my work or my daily routine or my like what energy I kind of give out and what that does
Mm.
and how it heals. So yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it does feel like, yeah, belief systems are a different topic for me completely, because it does feel like people have their sets of beliefs, and that's honestly, they're incredible because they're all different. Everyone has their own take on it. Could be like religious belief, it could be a spiritual belief, scientific, whatever it may be. Um, but the amount that they share it, I think actually it's just personal. I think it's a personal, and I think for me, I think it's one of those things that you're allowed to keep it treasured, because it is precious. It's something that people need to keep coveted, because it's like this set of, like, I guess, inner heartbeats that you have, that those are the things that keep you going, right? Your beliefs and values are the things that motivate you and pull you in one direction versus another
Mm.
direction. I don't know. I don't think I answered your question there at all,
Um,
Alex. You know, we'll go with that.
I think my judgment that I was imposing on other people was rejected, which is fine. So I think, but yeah, no, that was very insightful. And I'm going to mention that I'm taking away the validation thing, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
I
okay.
see that happening for me, and that's really useful. Just to,
Yeah.
are you sharing this because someone else needs to tell you what you're doing is good?
Mm,
Doesn't it's good in its own. You can share it with no one. It's no.
yeah, exactly.
So that's actually quite a good lesson for me, if I'm honest with you. Thank you for that.
Oh, that's right.
But let's finish with a sort of final question.
Yeah.
Um, what would you like to give to other people? So if there's one piece of advice you want to give to other people about who are going on their own learning journey and self growth, what would you say to them?
I would say, don't compare yourself to anyone or anything, or anyone that's, you know, a friend or a peer that's same age as you, whatever, and you should be at this point compared to that point. The one thing that I've learned almost the hard way, because I mean everyone does it. We all kind of look at people that are as similar to us and see where they are. It You find what you find when you're meant to find it, and you get
Mm,
to where you get to when you're meant to be there. Um, and people get there at different ages, different times in their lives, different sort of, you know, your mind has to be in a certain place to absorb certain things, and just please don't compare yourself. We're all different, and that's what actually makes the teams and makes life and families and, like, you know, friendships really genuinely interesting and invaluable. So just because I'm at a place that's not kind of where you are, that doesn't mean anything. You'll get to where you get to, and actually your destination isn't the same, and it never will be, because your journeys are going to be different. So don't give up. don't compare yourself, and just start self-reflecting. I think it's one thing, just start knowing who you are before you worry about other people.
Mm.
Saying that like I'm a master at it, and I'm not. I really am not. And I think it's constant journey, even for people that do it daily anyway. And it's hard because life does, superficial stuff does get in the way sometimes, but just keep going with it. And everyone's on their journey still. It never ends. And certain life things will happen and pull you back and push you in a different direction and pull you that way, and it to test you, but just keep going.
Thank you, Kav.
It's all right.
Thank you very much. So
Thank
I
you.
think thanks for your time, and yeah, I'm going to stop it there.
Okay.
I just realised I probably need some sort of. Oops, sorry, now I've really messed it up.